All right. Which one of these looks like a good review? Hmm. Let's see what NASA's coding requirements. This
So
thing
let's
has
do
a
this.
this video has 100. No, this video has 1.9 million views. My God, that's crazy.
So let's do this. The 10 ways in which NASA writes critical safety. Now remember, they're pretty good at being critically safe. Obviously, the Voyager stuff is awesome. All right, most serious software projects use coding guidelines. These guidelines are meant to state what the ground rules are for software to be written, how it should be structured, and which language features should and should not be used. Curiously, there is little consequence on what a good coding standard is. Among the many that have been written,
Not consequence, consensus.
there are remarkably few patterns to discern, except that each new document tends to be longer than the one before it. Okay, that's pretty good. Dark mode, can you dark mode a PDF? I don't know how to dark mode a PDF, dog. Sorry, this is NASA light mode. Okay. The result is that most existing guidelines can tell well over 100 rules, or okay. The result is that most existing guideline contains well over 100 rules, sometimes with questionable justifications. Some rules, especially those that try to stipulate the use of white space in programs, Python mentioned, may have been introduced by personal preference. Others are meant to prevent very specific and unlikely types of errors from earlier coding efforts within the same organization. Not surprisingly, the existing code guidelines tend to have little effect on what developers actually do when they write code. By the way, I'm loving whatever the start of this article is. Whatever NASA has cooked up, the start of this is amazing.
Yeah, I have to agree. I've been doing software for about well over 15 years. I'd have to agree as well. Um, Particularly because coding standards should be structured but also minimal and provide space for developers to create innovation within your company. And I see most organizations are too stupid to understand this.
Because it is so right that there is a lot of personal preferences that are written into code guidelines. Uh,
Dee-dee-dee. It should be obvious to people, but no one ever actually listens to the developers. No one listens to the scientists.
the most dooming aspect of many of the guidelines is that
Even even half of the other scientists or half of the other developers who are, let's just say, not as innovative, not as intelligent, and they try to also force you to do what they want simply because they're in positions of power. And yeah, this is why a bunch of projects suck, including in the video game industry.
they rarely allow for comprehensive tool-based compliance checks. Tool-based checks are important since it often infeasible to manually review the hundreds of thousands of lines of code that are written for larger projects. I love everything. I love everything that is currently being stated. Things should be rely on automation and tools, and it should have zero personal preference. Okay, things are looking good. Things are looking good. The benefit of existing coding guidelines is therefore often small, even for critical applications. A verifiable set of well chosen coding rules could, however, make critical software components more thoroughly analyzable for properties that go beyond compliance with the set of rules itself. To be effective, though, the set of rules has to be small and must be.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to cut him off here at this point because I'm like, okay, what's the point here? Okay, they're saying things that everyone, that any intelligent developer should already know. So I'm just gonna skip this.
Should be clear when it really can be desirable. Compilers. For this reason, C is also the target of the majority of coding guidelines that have been deployed.
Oh, hold
Compilers.
on.
For this
Let's go back a
critical
little bit.
coding. The choice of the language for safety critical code is in itself a key consideration, but we will not debate it much here. At many organizations, JPL included, Critical code is written in C. With its long history, there is extensive tool support for this language, including strong source code analyzers, logical model extractors, metric tools, debuggers, test support tools, and a choice of mature, stable compilers. For this reason, C is also the target of the majority of coding guidelines that have been deployed or developed. For fairly pragmatic reasons, then, our code rules primarily target C and attempt to optimize our ability to more thoroughly check the reliability of critical applications written in C. All right, you heard it here, people. I know there's a lot of soy devs out there right now, okay? A lot of you guys right now that when you heard the fact.
That is exactly the conclusion I came up with yesterday when I was doing some comparative analysis on ChatGPT, um, to where I was, analyzing all the programming languages to see which ones are actually the best. And, what I found was there's only a few languages that are pretty much the best. And instead of people building tools for further development, uh, in things like C, they spawn off these other languages or language libraries, for web browsing and web development. And I don't believe in using one language for one thing. And I'm an optimization type of person. And so I believe that you need to use a coding language that is expansive, and I believe C is one of those languages. Um, exactly for the reason he said. Python has a bunch of libraries as well, but at the end of the day, that's compiling into C. So you're still using C, and to me, it doesn't make any sense to use a programming language that's going to compile into another programming language. I mean, that's a different programming. To me, that's kind of stupid. So at a logical level, I believe the solution is to write in one language and write everything you need. So that would be you could create using C a web developer GUI. That way you could actually manage everything within the browser theoretically here, because at this point they don't exist, because everything's using JavaScript in the browser. But yeah, I definitely agree with this.
Act that they used C and they used the word safety critical, you're just like, interns. Again, last time I checked, y'all don't have Voyager out there, okay? You're not GigaChads, okay? You're a bunch of script kiddies LARPing as system engineers, okay? Shut up. Let's see what they have to say, okay? The following rules may provide a benefit, especially if the low number means that developers will actually adhere to them. Each rule is followed with a brief rationale for its inclusion. Rule 1. Restrict all code to very simple control flow constructs. Do not use goto statements, set jump, or long jump constructs, and direct or indirect recursion. I don't know what indirect recursion means. Is indirect recursion just two functions that call back and forth to each other? Okay, so help me understand this one.
Actually, I don't want to help you understand what recursion is, because they made such a fucking general statement there that people can be confused. That Let's go back to that statement. That first rule is literally it's extremely general to me. Do not use goto statements, uh, set jump or long jump constructs. Okay. What if you don't need to use those at all anyway? I mean, how much value are these actually applying? Um, you rarely use recursion anyway. Now it's indirect recursion. Yeah.
For its inclusion. Rule 1. Restrict all code to very simple control many a times where you have a function that needs to go out and call another function that needs to go do something and do some sort of checking, and then come back through some means that you don't control, especially in languages that, like, if you don't have async await. I guess you just have to block the thread. Is that all it's asking? You just block the thread if you don't have async await, right? And you just sit there and you just block the thread and you just do this in a while loop. I'll have to think of the times that I use, because I technically use indirect recursion when doing reconnecting sockets. And what I mean by that is if I just open up, let's open up, socket, this one. There we go. So I have this reconnecting thing that will literally call a private reconnected that resets the state, then call reconnect, and reconnect will go in here and then call connect. Connect, when it disconnects, will recall connect. So this is technically a form of I mean, I guess I could just put this in a while loop and then have an await. I wonder if that's simpler. Now you really got my brain thinking about this. It could just be an endless. You know, I kind of want to think more about that. Okay, I
But that, why would you open up a JavaScript to try to see what their point was when the code for JavaScript is completely different than the code for C? And so are the utilities. Set jump, long jump constructs. That shit doesn't even exist in JavaScript.
will think more about that. I will think more about that. Prime already broke over results in improved code clarity. I'd agree.
Yes.
Without recursion, though, we are guaranteed to have an acyclic function call graph, which can be exploited by code analyzers and can directly help to prove that all executions that should be bounded are in fact bounded. Note that this rule does not require that all functions have a single point of return, although this is often simplifies control flow. There are enough cases, though, where an early return or an early error return is a simpler.
Okay. Fuck that. I'm going to be the one to say this. Whoever wrote this shit was trying to be smarter than they really are, using all these big words, and they're not using anything in context. They're just fucking saying things in general. And it's like saying, oh, when doing multiplication, it's also good to do division sometimes. I mean, this is literally the level of stupidity that they've written in. They're just using words that are so big or so foreign to be put together, and they're and as general statements that it's going to confuse anyone fucking looking at it, and no one's going to question their bullshit. This is exactly what makes government funded agents or government funded let's just say that there are intelligent engineers and then there are fucking fakers.
Solution. That's actually, I mean, that's a very pragmatic argument for it. To be completely fair, this is very
a pragmatic argument for what? Do not use recursion. I mean, if they're gonna make a fucking rule to restrict a pattern or restrict a commonly known method like recursion, then they're fucking Nazis. And they're literally breaking the rule that they originally just set with saying that there should be minimal code standards. Minimal. This is literally you literally said do not ever use recursion. You know, do not ever use a function, do not ever create a function that's going to recursively loop through itself and continuously call itself until a condition is set. So you could look at it as a while loop.
This is a very pragmatic argument for why you shouldn't do this. And to also be completely fair, you have a binary tree that looks like a learning experience for me. All loops must have a fixed upper bound. It must be trivially possible for a checking tool to prove statically that a present upper bound on the number of iterations of a loop cannot be exceeded. If the loop bound cannot be proven statically, the rule is considered violated. So does that...
Okay. What the fuck? Why would you even think about it like this? This is a stupid way of thinking. Okay, all loops must have a fixed upper bound. It must be trivially possible. What the fuck does trivially possible mean? See, this is the kind of shit I'm talking about. These bullshit words that they put all throughout this thing to make themselves seem smarter. It must be trivially possible for a checking tool to prove statically that a present upper bound in the number of iterations of a loop cannot be exceeded. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? This shit is it has to be in everything is in context. You're literally saying random shit about code. Everything has to be in context. And what do you mean fixed upper bound? Loops, fixed upper bound. What the fuck is that? How about this? I'll Google the shit. Okay. So they're saying this is what I'm talking about here. Okay. So they're saying that the loop has a fixed limit. They're just saying the loop has a fixed limit, right? This is what I'm talking about though. The way that they wrote this shit looks ridiculous and it's stupid. Trivial putting words like trivially possible. That shit's not scientific. Um, but in terms of the loop itself, they're just saying ensure all loops have a limit set to them, okay? And the limit needs to be proven statically. I mean, why? Now we're going to look at this rationale. The absence of recursion and the presence of loop bounds prevents runaway code. This rule does not, of course, apply to iterations that are to be non-terminating. Okay, okay. They still made this a little bit complicated with the way that they wrote this. The way they wrote this is bullshit. They're basically just saying set limits to your loops. You know, um, I think if your rules look like they've been written. I don't even know what the fuck how this is beneficial to write bullshit like this. I don't see how this is beneficial to anybody because all you've done like every I can sum up everything this fucking rule says in one fucking sentence. They have like two or three different sentences here that is just too many fucking words and they're just trying to inflate their intelligence. Okay, look. Loops should be fixed. Okay, I agree, but I don't agree. I think most of the time, of course, they should be fixed, but it depends on what you're doing. It depends on what your project and mission is. You may need a loop to be dependent on a variable that's dynamic. And in that case, your rule is shit. Your rule is fucking shit. You're just pulling shit out of your ass and you're actually becoming exactly what you said in your first fucking paragraph. You're contradicting yourself because you've already didn't your rules aren't simple and they're very general. What's missing from this rule is a specific scenario or specific scenarios of this rule applies to.
Tool to prove statically that a
Because that's why you have test code. You have code that tests and run to ensure things like your loop doesn't actually cause any runaway code ever. A test can prove that.
present upper bound on the number of iterations of a loop cannot be exceeded. If the loop bound cannot be proven statically, the rule is considered violated. So does that hold on? So does that mean you can't use things like array dot r dot for each because there's no technical like the upper bound is dynamic based on the array, or is
No, that's not what that means at all. It just means what I said when I stated the loop needs to have a fixed limit. That's essentially what they're saying. And an array for each, you're missing you're missing exactly what you need to actually even ask that question, which is data going through it. A for each is looping and it has a limit. It's always a for each. The limit is always the array, the number of items inside that array. That is the limit. Always. So if if you knew how to code, if you were a real actual software engineer, then you wouldn't even ask that question. So this actually tells me that whoever this guy, the prime time is, he's some sort of acting character, I guess, running this business channel because he is not a professional grade developer or engineer. I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I wouldn't have asked that question because it's obvious that a for each, which is a built-in utility method, will always run with a limit of the actual array length.
Is it so no while true? Rationale.
Let's go to number
It just
3.
means you can't use closures, right? Because closures would be, I assume this means fair. You could do this without. Oh, actually, you could do this in JavaScript and Go.
Okay, this guy has no idea what he's fucking talking about.
Rule 3. Do not use dynamic memory allocations after initializations. And there went JavaScript and Go. Damn.
There went JavaScript and Go. You're saying, bro, okay, audience, I am telling you right now, this man with this fucking mustache, he has no fucking idea what these people mean by what they're saying. He's making he's like making runaway assumptions. Do not use dynamic memory allocation after initialization. They're talking about dynamic memory within an application. He said, there goes Go, there goes JavaScript. What the fuck are you talking about, dude? That has nothing to, Go and JavaScript have nothing to do with this. Do not use dynamic memory allocation. In fact, JavaScript is not using memory allocation majority of the time. You're using whatever is in the browser, essentially. You're not normally having to manage memory allocation within the browser. But C code, you are. Back-end languages, such as Go, you are. You want to have control of the amount of RAM, a fixed amount of control of the RAM that you're using, that the application is using. They're saying do not assign dynamic RAM allocation after you initialize an application or function. But again, there's something wrong with their rule. Their rule is that they put one fucking sentence here. It's extremely general. You know, there's a reason that dynamic memory allocation exists. Okay? And so you may actually need to do dynamic memory allocation. But what they're saying is don't try to do it after something's already initialized with memory. So let's see why they say it. It's a common rule. Okay, the rationale, the rule is common for safety and critical software. That is a shitty way. Whoever wrote this needed someone smarter than them or something to review this and cut out this bullshit that they've been writing. Like when I say bullshit, I mean bullshit on 2 layers. One, this first of all, they're wrong. The rationale is, why did NASA choose to make this a rule? Well, we chose to make this a rule because it's common for safety critical software. It's common. You chose something only because it's common, only because other people use it, and you call yourselves fucking scientists? No. This is why this part here should be removed. It appears in most coding guidelines. They need to destroy this first sentence. This first sentence shows that they don't know what they're doing. They're copying other people. They have no actual scientific background in why they're choosing to make this a rule other than other people are doing it. The reason is simple. Memory allocators such as malloc and garbage collectors often have unpredictable behavior that can significantly impact performance. Unpredictable behavior? If they had unpredictable behavior, they wouldn't even be programmed garbage collectors. They're not unpredictable. They're only unpredictable if you don't manage them all correctly. A notable class of coding errors has also stemmed from mishandling memory allocation and free routines. Okay, this has nothing to do with why oh my God. This is saying because there have been errors in general from mishandling memory allocation and free routines, we're not going to do it. Okay. I mean, That's your rationale. But again, I'm looking at this like this is NASA. Their rationale should be based in scientific evidence, not really necessarily regurgitating, an industry standard. I mean, it's fine if it's an industry standard, but it's it it depends on what your industry is and the type of software you're making. It's not always an industry standard for code. Um, because there's some code that you don't have to worry about. There's some coding languages you don't have to worry about garbage collectors. So, I mean, now, boom, now your reason that you just made up is irrelevant. This stuff kind of makes me annoyed because these are obviously bureaucratic type of people.
Actually, no. To be fair, you could do this without. Oh, actually, you could do this in JavaScript and Go. You could do this in JavaScript and Go.
Oh, you changed your mind, buddy. Oh, you changed your mind. Oh, wow. Good, good. Maybe somebody told him on the side, and I gave him like a chat and was like, "Hey, man, you actually can do this. You're wrong. You better change your answer really quick." Because I mean, the fact that he didn't know that he felt like a fixed upper bound loop had anything to do with a for each statement was retarded. I mean, it wasn't retarded. It was just something I would expect, you know, an 18-year-old or a very young person who's just learning to. It's one of those questions I would expect them to ask. It's not a question someone would experience would have would have put out there. That's what I mean. Those kind of become really obvious. But I'm gonna skip through this and go through these rules because this is boring as hell.
Overstepping boundaries on allocated memory, etc. This actually makes perfect game programmer would understand, right? Too little FPS.
I swear to God, maybe NASA's paying this guy because he's like not critically. He's not disagreeing with anything. And in here I am disagreeing with a lot of things, especially the way the writing is. I need to go to what is line 4?
And one line per.
Let's go to line 4. Okay. No function should be longer than what it can be printed in a single sheet of paper. Okay, then what can be printed on a single sheet of paper? In a standard reference format with one line per statement and one line per declaration. Typically, this means no more than 60 lines of code per function. 60 lines of code per function. Honestly, I mean, I can respect this rule. However, my personal standard is 30 lines. You do not want you don't want to fucking read through 60 lines of code. I mean, it also depends on the type of code it is. If those 60 lines are focused on, I don't know, maybe you program one device to do something specific, I think that's fine. But a general rule with like web development or just good software engineering where you want to be able to show users or even your team needs to be able to read things clean and concise, you really want 30, around 30. And you break the method functionality up. It makes everything totally easy to read because it makes the code easy to trace.
Declaration. Typically, this means no more than about 60 lines of.
So what else you got here? I'm gonna skip through this to see if I can get to rule 5. Okay, let's see what this is. The assertion density of the code. What the fuck? What? The assertion density of the code? What the fuck are you trying to say? Like, these people don't realize they're talking to people. They're trying to get other people to read this shit. Nobody wants to fucking read a goddamn college book. Holy shit. Way to drag out the information. Everything should be clear and concise communication. I want to slap the fucker who wrote this. The assertion density of the code should average to a minimum of 2 assertions per function. They did not have to fucking try to make that a big word. They did not have to even say assertion density at all. They could have just said the code should average a minimum of 2 assertions per function. I would have much preferred to read. Oh, God damn it. Assertions are used to check for anomalies, conditions that should never happen in real life executions. Okay, cool. Assertions must always be side effect free and should be defined as Boolean tests. Okay. I mean, again, I don't have a problem with this. When I just have a problem with the way they wrote it. When an assertion fails, an explicit recovery action must be taken by returning an error condition to the caller of that function. I disagree with that. You're not going to return fucking. I guess you will. I guess you will. But I also think that you can avoid having this issue by writing assertions for your tests, for your test code. Um, and of course you want to have. They're essentially saying they just want you to have error handling for your code, so that when a condition is met, um, it can have a execution. It's going to execute the failing assertion. So I'm thinking they're saying, what is this? Any assertion for which a static checking tool can prove that it has never failed, or that it can never fail nor never hold, violates this rule. Possibly to satisfy the rule by adding unhelpful assertion true. Yeah, but again, this assert is like those assertions are used for test code a lot. So I mean, I'm not I'm not sure. They kind of lose me. They could just show examples and like make this super easy, because I here's the thing. This is a piece of paper from a group of intelligent scientists who are communicating with people who are less intelligent than they are. And instead of them breaking this down, or speaking like normally, and they don't do a good job at conveying their points. They don't do a good job. Like when someone reads this paper, they're not going to have concrete images within their brain on what these people are talking about, because the text is it's they're using unnecessary words to make themselves seem smarter in the text itself. A lot of these statements are very general, and the rationale behind it is not concrete and based in science. Like saying that, oh, we're doing this because everyone else is doing it. You know, that's kind of that's kind of weak to me. But yeah, I think I'm done with this. I mean, I read a couple of rules, and I've pretty much had it, because this is some bureaucratic bullshit, to be honest with you. And I don't think this doesn't ultimately help a company. I mean, not the way that the information is conveyed. I think they could have done uh, uh, the same thing in about 3 pages and included vivid examples, example code snippets as well. Um, and really examples of when and why you would code this way, because coding a web app, coding a machine that's doing machine learning, coding an application only for a visible user like a desktop application, all of these things are different and they require different tools. And so it's not really helpful for people to see these very, very general coding requirements. And when you're talking about rockets and building machines that need to do things based on things, your code logic itself is the most critical thing that you want to enforce and protect more than any of this shit. Your code logic, the architectural pattern, those are more important than most of these rules. Because when you have a solid architectural pattern, in a solid software engineer who's the architect and architects these things, people don't have to worry about the fucking rules. your engineers can focus on just doing their job. So, I already know not everyone agrees with me, but also not everyone has the amount of experience I have. Oh, what was that? What was that, Brian? You said, what's my experience? Oh, I've been a software engineer for about 16 years. It's a master Java engineer. Yeah, now I'm master Angular, which is the TypeScript language. Worked with that about 10 years. Worked for multiple companies, many successful healthcare companies, government projects. So, got master's software engineering. Kind of know what I'm talking about.